MTG Scoundrels, it's in the cardboard. Ladies and gentlemen, scoundrels of all ages, welcome back to another episode of Modern Weekly. Today on the docket, we have Through the Breach versus Eldrazi Ramp. Two of the main Eldrazi decks in the format, alongside Mono Green Eldrazi Tron, and the recent uptick in the Brood-Scale combos. Starting off here with the revealed Devourer of Destiny. Looking at the top four. A few different options here. We saw an Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, an Ugin's Labyrinth. I believe there was a Talisman in there as well. And there was definitely a Shifting Woodlands in there. And looks like, never mind, that was a Misty Rainforest. Looks like exiling it, the Ugin's Lab, and the Ulamog. So that means the Shifting Woodland going to the top. Must be worried about a green source, would be my guess. Well, maybe not. There's a Talisman of Impulse. After the Devourer of Destiny goes underneath the Ugin's Lab. Speaking of Ugin's Lab, imprinting in Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, one of the key big pieces for the Through the Breach list. Opposite here we have an Eldrazi Temple, that's 5 mana on turn 2. There is a Kessig Wolf Run for the Through the Breach list. End step. We have a K return. Excuse me, K command. Scrying 3, drawing 1, and making 3 Eldrazi spawns. So on turn 3 here, there will be 8 mana for the ramp player, which is exactly where they would like to be. Drawing for turn. There is a forest. And a kicked Sowing Mycospawn on turn 3. That'll exile the Ugin's Lab. Opposing player going ahead and activating the Ugin's Lab, putting the Emrakul back into hand. And the Sowing Mycospawn finding an Eldrazi Temple. Sowing Mycospawn, when you get them to exile lands as early as turn 3, really snowballs the game into your favor. Sowing Mycospawn getting in for 3. And, well, there is an Emrakul the Promised End. For 10 mana. Well, actually 11 mana, excuse me. Thanks to the K command costing, taking 2 off the cost here. And they'll scoop it up from there. When you only have 1 land, and your opponent lands the Emrakul the Promised End, good idea to stop it. Game 1, going to Eldrazi Ramp. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend. We're happy you guys have been tuning in. And as you've been able to tell through our last video, we are now sponsored by Warden Games. Warden Games, a wonderful place to go storm out. You can find their store webpage down in the description, as well as their TCG Player storefront for singles. Support them if you can. And if you also look in the description, you will find deck lists for the individual players. And of course, if you're looking to get tokens, definitely check out our friends over at Arcane Artistry, longtime supporters of the channel. They make wonderful food, clue, and treasure tokens in a stained glass style. Very durable too, made out of acrylic. And if you put them together, they make a panorama. So go ahead, check them out. Etsy link in the description. I know for certain they're in the process of getting some other tokens available, especially the highly played ones in Modern. It's definitely worth looking. And if you've noticed our new logo, definitely check out our artist, good friend Sean Gerrara. Their email's in the description and you can reach out. They are open to new art projects. It's definitely send them an email if you're looking for new stuff for your business or just want some wonderful art. Moving into sideboarding here, I suspect the ramp player probably bringing in a certain amount of consign to memory. It's easily the best counter spell in the format right now. Counters triggered abilities. It's kind of taken the place of Flusterstorm. Also wouldn't be surprised if both players are bringing in the Stone Brain. Though it tends to be a little bit more effective as long as you keep curving out for the Eldrazi Ramp player. Naming Through the Breach is a great way to get ahead. Of course, naming Consign for the Through the Breach player, not a bad call either. Though getting either player off the One Ring is also very helpful. We continue to be an interesting spot in the Modern metagame. And while Boros is the most played deck in the format, it's actually a very diverse format as long as you don't look at the One Ring being in almost every single deck. There's a lot of stuff going on. We've seen some Affinity pop up recently. Dredge has started to make a little bit of a comeback, which always does when there isn't a ton of graveyard hate anymore. It's all very selective graveyard hate. Less, rest in peace. Moving into Game 2 here. Pre-game effects, Devourer of Destiny. Looking at the top 4 here. Of course, looking at the top 4 triggers at the beginning of your upkeep. But you do have to reveal the Devourer first. It looks like exiling a One Ring, another Devourer, and can't quite see the third card there. Here's a Nugen's Lab with said Devourer underneath it. Not a bad way to start. Forest Utopia Sprawl for the Ramp player. There's another Ugin's Lab. There's a turn 2 One Ring. One of the strongest plays either deck can do on turn 2. Granted, notice that took 5 cards, but not a bad place to put your 7+ mana stuff to be able to draw into more gas. The Eldrazi Ramp player taking 2 off the stomping ground here. And who knew turn 2 would be looking like they're further behind. Probably trying to figure out what we're going to do here. You got 3 mana. You're staring a One Ring down. There's 2. There's a Malevolent Rumble. That's not a bad start. Ooh, Consign going into the bin. taking a talisman. I'll put 3 types in the graveyard. There's a spawn. Looks like cracking the spawn immediately for a Talisman of Curiosity and passing the turn. That sets you up for a possible Sowing Myco spawn, so that's not bad. Drew a card on end step, untapping, going to 1918. Drawing 2 more cards. Here's a Grove of the Burn Willows. If there was a Through the Breach here, that probably would be snapped off. Though Consign is still a worry for the Through the Breach player here. It's just going to go ahead and say go. Untapping and drawing. There's a Stone Brain. Cracking the Stone Brain. Probably naming Through the Breach. Oof, looking at there. There's a K command, a couple lands, an opposing Stone Brain, a World Breaker. And it looks like an opposing Sowing Myco spawn as well. That's tough. You still have to name that Through the Breach, though. Makes you wonder if you could have taken one more opportunity to build your board out a little bit in terms of ramping. But you got to do it. You just die to Through the Breach. Ooh, no land drop. That's tough. Here's a K command on end step. Make 3 dudes. Scry 3, draw 1. Untapping. Taking 2 off the ring. Drawing 3. It's that snowball effect of the One Ring. Once you get to this point, especially if you don't have any opposing threats you have to deal with, losing life off the One Ring for cards just doesn't matter as much. Yep, there is a kicked Sowing Myco spawn. Looks like probably, yep, giving 1 life to the Eldrazi Ramp player, bringing us to 17 to 19 off the Grove. And the Sowing Myco spawn going to hit the forest with the Utopia Sprawl as a rough spot. And they'll fetch their own Eldrazi Temple. And that's how it gets snowballed. Unfortunately, you take a turn off for the Stone Brain there, which you have to do. But you can kind of take over. Here's an Ancient Stirrings. Taking 1 off of that Carpulsian Forest. For the green mana. Finding a Sowing Myco spawn off of that Ancient Stirrings. That's pretty solid. There's a Thought-Knot Seer. Decent hand. Taking the One Ring. That'll get exiled. Passing the turn. Forest is a land drop. Untapping, taking 3 off of the One Ring, bringing us to 16 to 19. Or excuse me, 16 to 19. 13 to 19. And there is a Stone Brain. This game is all but over. The Ramp player deciding if they want to consign this. Probably should. But, I mean, at this point doesn't matter too much. Cracking the Stone Brain. They're going to hit the consigns. Probably the thought here is just being able to draw another card. Possibly getting you another land drop. If it's a soul land, you have a little bit more of a chance. You can kind of hit a K command. Just one of those situations. There's now a Forest in play for the Through the Breach player, so a little less has to be done. In terms of giving and taking life. Why not draw 4 cards? Seems like the right thing to do. Especially when you have the mana open to be able to cast a second One Ring. Attacking him for 7. That'll bring us to 13 to 12. Alright, let's play another Sowing Mycospawn. Thin the deck a little bit. And also just have 10 damage on the board for any crackback. And moving to clean up, discarding 2 lands, passing the turn. This is probably, yep, scooping it up from there. Didn't see a soul land. No real possible way of rebuilding your board. And that'll draw us even. Through the Breach winning game 2. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend. On the left here, we have Ryan. Consistently one of the players who pops in, plays top decks when they're available. We know him mostly for some of the Omnath lists that he's played. And on the right we have Jason on Eldrazi Ramp. You've probably seen him on multiple different Eldrazi lists. Recently top 8'd in RCQ. Moving into game 3 here. I believe the Ramp player on the play. Be interesting to see what they prioritize here. Especially when you end up a little low on mana there. Thanks to taking a turn off for Stonebrain, but you kind of had to do it, staring down 5 mana. Just got a little unlucky that they were able to hit 6 and Sowing Myco spawned your Utopia Sprawl to land. Alright, starting out with the Forest with the Utopia Sprawl. Forest to Ancient Stirrings. Finding a Thought-Knot Seer. Passing. Here's a Hedge Maze. Oh, there's a Consign on top. 2 mana for a Talisman of Curiosity and passing the turn. Not a bad start. Through the Breach, another Ancient Stirrings. Finding a Temple. Play that Temple for turn. And say go. Cavern of Souls, naming Eldrazi. And here is a Sowing Myco spawn. Probably finding an Eldrazi Temple here. Yes, indeed. Which, as we know, drawing that Consign that turn will make it difficult for the Through the Breach player to land anything. At least on this next turn. And depending on your hand, playing Consign proactively is very smart. Instead of just saving it for bigger stuff. If you can deny him some mana, or even a threat, sometimes that's enough. There's a Carpulsian Forest into a Thought-Knot Seer, but yep, that's going to get consigned. Seven possible mana currently. And here is A kicked sowing mycospawn. That'll exile the Eldrazi Temple. And finding an Eldrazi Temple, attacking in for 3. Bringing us to 17 to 20. And just like that, the board state looks drastically in the favor of the Eldrazi Ramp player. There's a Growth of the Burn Willows as the land for turn for the Through the Breach player. Now granted, if Through the Breach gets to 5 lands here, or 5 mana in general, things can be turned on their head pretty quickly. There's a Misty Rainforest. Two mana for a Malevolent Rumble, if I can talk today. Making a spawn, milling 4. Whew, there's an Emrakul the Promise End. That's not a bad shout. We're going to take the One Ring here. Maybe there's an Emrakul in hand already. Here's the One Ring. Activating the One Ring. Attacking in for 6. That'll bring us to 11 to 20. Another red source here. There's a Sowing Mycospawn. Finding an Eldrazi Temple. That puts you at 5 lands. So not out of the game yet. Oh, deciding, yep, gonna crack that Misty Rainforest on the end step there. We'll be going to 11-19 as well. And then 11 to 18 off the One Ring. Playing another Misty Rainforest. Has access to 10 possible mana. Yep. There's an Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. So technically could have had access to 11 because of that Misty Rainforest. Going to choose 2 lands to exile, probably. Not every not every ramp list runs Ulamog, but sometimes it just does the job. Gonna hit the E-Temple. And one of the forests here. Yep, hitting the regular forest. Make them have to pay for the green and red mana. Attacking him for 6. 3's going to get through. And passing the turn. And calling it good there. You see the double through the breach. And that'll be game, set, match going to the Eldrazi Ramp player. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe, be a friend, tell a friend. And we shall see you all next week.